All right, I'm here with Sophie. Sophie is a 2-year-old Dobie, and she doesn't really have much self-control. She kind of wiggles up on top of people, licks them, and she's very friendly and happy about it. But she has had some dog reactivity to another dog that lives here that you can hear actually in the background now. And so the guardians have separated them. What we've worked on in this session is a lot of things to help her develop some self-control, and this exercise is a great way to do it as well. In this video, I'm going to show you how to teach your dog to stay with the door wide open. So I haven't done this with her. I'm not one of those people who practices. The dog already knows how to do it. I've not done this at all. So basically, first of all, before we get to this, one of the rules that I suggest for my clients is something that will help with this tremendously. Most people train their dogs to jump at the door. Now, any attention for the dog, from you for the dog is validating. You pet a barking dog, it's gonna bark more because it thinks you're petting for the barking. Now, so I look for ways to help dogs develop some self-control by everyday activities that we do multiple times a day. So one of the rules that I like to incorporate rules so people can see that the dog can see the humans acting like a leader. So one of the rules I suggest is the dog has to sit before I let it out the door. So I go to the door and I say, sit. 1, 2, 3. Now she's staring at a squirrel or something out there. So you see how she's really intense. Her focus is elsewhere. So I go, this is a little different. Usually the dog's pining. I come over here, I say sit 1 time. The dog has 3 seconds to comply. Can you close my bag lap? Thank you. You're distracted. I'm going to go and get my good stuff. And there should be a bag of treats there. Make sure she doesn't grab the bag of treats too. Okay, thank you. And so management, we call that. So basically, I tell her to sit. She has 3 seconds to comply. If she does not sit within 3 seconds, I walk, try to walk, and I sit down somewhere nearby, and I wait for 60 seconds. If you have Siri or Alexa or one of those things, ask for a 60-second timer. After the 60 seconds is up, Sophie, she would probably be here because she wants to go outside. I say, sit. Now, as soon as she sat, I would let her out the door. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to show you how to teach her to stay. But as soon as she sits, when you tell her in that 3-second window, then the door flies open and she gets what she wants. She can't let herself out. I have to be the one to do that for her. So I have some leverage in this situation. If she wants something, then she has to do something for me first. I'm asking her to sit to essentially pay for the privilege of going outside. Now, if she doesn't sit within the next time, within 3 seconds after, first time I walk away and sit there for 60 seconds. Come back and say sit again. If she doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk down and sit down. Make sure you're seated. This time I sit for 2 minutes. Next time I sit for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. I keep double length of time until when I come and say sit, then I would fly the door open. Now, the other thing, probably the dog comes over and they're like, can you sit? And I said, no, I cannot. So don't ask, tell assertively. All right, so and as soon as the dog sits, then you let him out. Most people train their dogs to jump at the door because, and this is a prime example, because she comes over here and she whines, she doesn't get what she wants, she nudges a little bit, she starts pawing at the door. And then eventually she starts jumping at the door, and one of the people who lives here is worried about the door getting broken, which is a valid concern, so they come over and they open the door and let the dog out. We have now trained the dog, pounding at the door is the best way to ask a dog to go outside. Doing the exercise, the rule that I just talked about, sit, and as soon as you sit, the door opens, we're using positive reinforcement. Sitting, doing what I want, gets you what you want. And I'm not telling you to do it multiple times, I'm giving you one opportunity. If you don't do it, then you don't get the privilege of going outside, but as soon as you do, boy, you get rewarded. Okay, Sophie, let's show people how to teach the dog. Once you want to achieve that, first, you want to do it with the direction the dog wants. If the dog really wants to go outside, do it with the dog inside. If the dog really wants to be inside, do it with the dog outside. So you have that leverage. And eventually, you do it in both directions. Once you've achieved that, your dog will now go sit at the door as its way of saying, can I please go outside? Now you're ready to do what I'm going to show you. So I don't need a treat for this. I know what I'm saying. Sit. See how she got up? When we think about this, we think of this one activity, one movement. I just come and open the door. It's actually a whole lot of little steps. And just like, for dogs, for some reason, when we teach dogs to do things, we try to teach them in the moment. Stop and don't go through the door when I'm opening the door. That's like too hard. So what I want to do is I want to break the activity down into small individual steps and help the dog practice the first step over and over without the next step happening. So the first step is I come to the door and I tell the dog, sit. Second step is I reach for the handle and I pull back. I'm not even grabbing it. I'm just doing this motion. I'm breaking it down individual steps. She's sitting down more and more relaxed. Now I can do the latch. See, the latch caused her to get up because that is a trigger that is associated with the door opening and getting freedom. Sit. sit. And try to reset and go put your arm back each time to your arm, to your normal resting position. So that's the next step. Now she's kind of like, oh, this is getting boring. So she went over to her guardian to say, hey, can you let me out? And he's just crossing his arms and saying, I got nothing for you. Sit. Now, we just started doing this, so I could tell her, sit. It's my hand motion I use to make the dog go through. Sit. After you've done this enough, you can just pull your arm back and just stop, and the dog will automatically go back to sit. This is something that typically would take a little bit longer than what we're doing in this video. We'll achieve it here, but for those of you watching at home, it normally takes a little bit more time. Okay, sit. 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 I don't want to maintain eye contact the whole time. I'm hoping for an auto SIT. All right, since we're looking for a faster video, I'm going to go ahead and give you the command. Sit. Sit. So, yeah, I know. You're almost there. Come here. Sit. 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 I'll reward the sit. So I unlock it each time. And close it a little bit, open it a little bit more, but she's got to stay seated. Maybe we won't achieve the whole thing in this video. But you're seeing already the results where at first caused her to come over, then we get multiples. Let's try one more time. Sit. Yeah, I know it's hardwood floors, but you can do it. Release. And if you want to teach a command word for that, when she goes out, maybe when you're getting ready to let her out, throw a treat. Yeah, I won't let that cat out. As soon as the dog licks up the treat, call it adventure, yard, out. Whatever the word is that you want to go out, and I prefer using fun command words. Hey, kitty. So you saw, now that was only a couple of seconds. I asked her to wait with the door open before I invite her to go out. The next step would be to gradually increase that. At first you wait 2 seconds before I could say, throw the treat and say whatever the words. And I would only throw the treat for about a week or so. After a week, you should be able to say adventure, and she just runs outside. But eventually you get to 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds. I do the same technique with letting a dog out of a kennel. Just because the kennel door is open doesn't mean you have permission. Now the dog is sitting here. I want to go outside, but I'm restraining myself. This is a great way to develop some self-control and also prevent your dog from barreling past you when you're trying to bring out food for cooking in and out. And after a while, the dog just comes and sits at the door. You open the door, all the humans go through first, and then you call the dog and you tell the dog when it's the dog's turn, or the dog recognizes everybody's gone through, and now I can go through last. Sophie! Sit. Sophie. We come over here. So everybody see how pretty you are. Look at those ears. Aren't they gorgeous? Sophie, one more time. I'm going to promise I'll give it to you if you sit. This is Sophie. Sit. And these are some tips and tricks you can use if you have a dog that gets excited and likes to rush out the door.